Having made videos on the history of New York state parks, in 2026, the newest state park was announced by the New York State Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historical Preservation, the 90-acre Three Falls State Park on Cayuga Lake in the Finger Lakes region. This park is a former Boy Scout camp of the Baden-Powell Council that was then sold to the state in order to preserve its natural scenery, and its name is given by the three waterfalls that are here, adding to the collection of state parks along this sizable lake. But let's talk about the natural and human history of this site, because like an artwork, a state park has provenance, going from one owner to another, adding to its rich story. I should mention that upstate New York is full of waterfalls, many of them in state parks, and here are some examples of books that talk about the waterfalls of New York. The most famous, I think, besides Niagara, which is a state park, is Watkins Glen, which is also in the Finger Lakes region. Now here's some pictures from Camp Barton, which is what Three Falls State Park was before its transfer to the state. A place of cabins, picnic tables, a dock, and groupings of cabins named after the local native nations, such as the Cayuga, Oneida, Mohawk, Onondaga, Tuscarora, and others, and a creek running through the site. Before then, it was a hotel called the Hotel Frontenac, which is what it was until the 1920s. Initially, the Boy Scouts preserved the hotel, as seen in the local newspapers here, but then the hotel either collapsed or fell into ruin. But where did this hotel get its name? So that takes us further back. A steamship called the Frontenac that plied the water of Cayuga Lake with other paddle boats. They were an important tourist attraction in the late 19th century. In 1907, the Frontenac caught fire and killing 8 passengers. But the name lived on, not only in the Frontenac Hotel, but also in Frontenac Road, which goes through this state park. What was the site before the Frontenac was here? It was the town of Ovid, one of many towns in the Finger Lakes region that was part of the Finger Lakes military tract. Pieces of land parceled out to veterans of the Revolutionary War, and these parcels were given names relating to the Roman Empire, as a way of showing that the United States was a republic, inspired by the Roman Republic of ancient times. Where the state park is located is the town of Ovid, named after a Roman writer. But how did this land fall into the hands of Revolutionary War veterans? That takes us back to the Sullivan expedition of 1779. Colonel Henry Sullivan launched an invasion of the historic Haudenosaunee, the 6 nations of the Iroquois peoples, because most of the Iroquois tribes were loyalist to the British cause. And so as part of the war between the Patriots and the British involved attacking and expelling the natives from the Finger Lakes region, what could be described as ethnic cleansing or genocide in modern terms. And the only lands left to the natives was the Onondaga Reservation and the Cayuga Reservation. The Cayuga Reservation was later purchased, arguably illegally, by the state, as natives are supposed to only trade with the federal government without state interference. But anyway, the Cayugas were forced westward, and only now, in recent years, have the Cayugas gone to court, unsuccessfully, but also purchased some of their former lands, successfully, at the northern tip of Cayuga Lake. This is a map of the Sullivan expedition. Further back, you can see the natural appearance of Cayuga Lake, carved out by the last ice age. On its western side is a rail trail that is also now a state park, connecting the parks along the way. At the bottom of the lake, the city of Ithaca, home of Cornell University. Looking at the Cayuga watershed, it's one of the unique landforms of New York, with the state parks along its sides, such as the Allen Treman State Marine Area, Long Point State Park, Lodi State Park, can be found here. But having spoken about the Three Falls State Park, I now look forward to making a video about the state park that's in the works, also waterfall related, High Falls State Park in Rochester, an urban state park on the Genesee River that'll speak of its natural history, industrial history, and connection with the city as it balances nature and urbanism. Having spoken about the Three Falls State Park, Again, want to point out some of the other state parks in New York that have waterfalls, from Niagara to Minnewaska, from Taconic to Letchworth, and everything in between, noting how most of them are in that Finger Lakes region. Do check out my other videos on the state parks of New York. Lend me a comment, concerns, and what you'd like to see in my videos. Thank you so much.